In this video, we're going to discuss 5 reasons why Canadian visitor visas are refused. Number 1, don't use someone else's credit card to file your visa application, especially if you have not declared that person as a representative. Because IRCC might think that you're using an unauthorized representative or a hidden agent, also known as a ghost consultant. And I've seen cases where this has happened. There was a case where a person in Canada was asked by their friend outside of Canada to pay their visit visa application fee using their Canadian credit card. The agreement was that the person in Canada will use their credit card to pay the fee and the other person outside of Canada will pay them back. The visa officer not only refused this application, but also kind of ended up blacklisting the person whose credit card was used. And later on, when that person in Canada wanted to invite his parents to visit them, their application was refused, even though they had declared that they are helping their parents. Why? Because IRCC lost trust on this person. The visa officer thought that he was a ghost consultant or a hidden agent, basically someone who's not authorized to file a visa application but does so under the table. This is not always the case, but it can happen. And these kinds of refusals are increasing. So it is better to be careful, as IRCC does track who made the fee payment and they also track IP address, which lets them know about the location where the application was submitted. Secondly, on a similar note, if you want someone else to file your application, do declare them in your application by using a relevant form like use of a family member representative or use of a representative form. And legally speaking, you can only pay a regulated Canadian immigration consultant or a licensed Canadian lawyer registered with the Law Society of Canada to file your application for a fee. The thousands of agents and so-called expert consultants and lawyers in different parts of the world who are not authorized, they submit your application illegally by hiding themselves. They don't show themselves in the visa application. They submit the application as if you, the applicant, is submitting it directly. And IRCC is cracking down on them. I have a detailed video on the topic that I will link below. The third thing is irrelevant conferences or conferences without an IRCC conference code. During my consultations and interactions with many people, I've realized that a lot of people generally assume that if they have an invitation to attend a conference or an event in Canada, their application will be very strong. That's not the case. First of all, not all conferences are equal. Some conferences are very well known and they are registered with IRCC, which means they have a conference code. Using that code can help you in your visa application. But even in this case, an irrelevant conference, even if it is registered with IRCC, will not be good enough to get you an approval. I have posted a detailed video on the topic that I will link below. The fourth reason is how and where you show the money available for your visit or for your education in Canada. Sometimes applicants have a very solid bank statement, but in the funds available for your trip section of the visa application form, they mention a very small amount. Even though it may sound practical to write $3,000 to $5,000, you should still mention the complete liquid funds you have, as it doesn't mean that you will spend all of this money. It just shows the visa officer clearly that you do have more than enough funds. Even if the visa officer spends very little time on your application, which they do, and they use artificial intelligence or analytics tools, they will still not miss the fact that you are financially strong. When visa officers on average have 5 to 7 minutes to spend on your application, they may not always open your bank statement. It is therefore better to use the space given for funds available for your stay to mention this. I also have a detailed video on different financial proofs that you should submit in your application that I will link below. The fifth reason is not mentioning your travel history using the Schedule 1 application for a temporary resident visa form, also known as a 5257B form. In this day and age of AI and analytics, using this form will ensure that your travel history is seen. This is an optional form, but I highly recommend you use it, especially if you have a travel history to Western countries, since some Western countries are sought after for immigration like Australia, New Zealand, UK, USA, and having their visas and travel history can be helpful, as it shows that if you wanted to stay there illegally or claim asylum, you could have done that in those places, but you didn't do so. Still, having these visas is no guarantee that your application will be approved. Even the CAN Plus category visas are refused sometimes. There's another thing. Not having this won't necessarily get your application refused, but having this is a big plus point, and that is the submission letter or the cover letter. Submission letters are critical, especially because the visa officers spend less less time on your visitor and study permit applications. Reading this submission letter, the visa officer should be convinced that you are a bona fide applicant and you have submitted the right evidence and the proper arguments to support your case. If your case is complicated for some reason, this will also be a very good opportunity to share examples of past federal court cases to emphasize your arguments on why you should be given this study permit or this visitor visa. If your application is refused and it needs to be challenged in the federal court, this letter will be very helpful as well. A submission letter basically summarizes your application in a few pages. It can also be used to address previous refusals. So if you need a template of the submission letter, I'll put a link to download the letter's template with some fictitious information. I hope you found this video to be useful. My name is Rashid Ali. I'm a regulated Canadian immigration consultant from Canada. If you need help in reviewing your refused application or you'd like me to take a second look at your application before you submit it, you can reach out to me. Details are given in the description. Thank you so much and take care.